Hello class. I've adjusted the screen. It's going to be just me experimenting for the first several weeks, first several chapters of the course to see what works best. So anyway, just bear with me, be patient. All right, this last part 4 of chapter 37, we're going to take a look now at other types of partnerships. These are just variations on what we have already discussed regarding general partnerships. All right, there are several other types of partnerships, but probably the primary one here is the limited partnership, which we'll spend a little bit more time on than the others. All right, so here first are 4 different types of partnerships. I want you to note that you'll see that with these variations, some increased protections allowed for the partners from personal liability, protection from personal liability for the partners. All right, so let's just start. We have the limited liability partnership, or an LLP for short. All right, so limited liability partnership. This is a partnership that has been designed under statute, all right, for professionals. So you'll see lawyers able to use this type of a partnership form, doctors, another professional group, able to use this partnership form. And what it does is that it will limit the personal liability of each partner for any of their co-partners, for their partners' malpractice. They will all still be liable, just like partners, for the rent on their office space, or payment for their staff, those kind of office expenses, overhead, but they will not be responsible for each other's malpractice. Right, so a limited liability partnership. Right, second variation is what's called a family limited liability partnership. This is just a variation off of the first type, except that you'll see that it is used among people that are related. So hence the word family, all right, in the term family limited liability partnership. And I have seen it used in estate planning. It's a way for a family to own an asset together. And so what you might have then are the parents that are the general partners. You'll have their children, adult children, as the limited partners, and it's a way then for the parents to transfer periodically their shares as general partners to their children through the family limited liability partnership. All right, so it's just a vehicle for estate planning. All right, we'll come back to letter C, or limited partnerships, on the following slides, and let me go through letter D, the limited liability limited partnership. Oh, and I did not put that in there, but it can be referred to as an LLLP, all right, triple LP, all right. It's a type of limited partnership, all right, hence that's the word limited is in front of partnership there. And in this type of partnership, the triple LP, both the general and limited partners have limited personal liability. That means that they will only be responsible to the extent of their investment. None of their personal assets will be held responsible for any debt of the business partnerships debts. All right. All right. So that gives you then the basic 4 variations. We're going to spend the rest of our time in this video looking at the limited partnership and how it operates. Let me see if I can, whoops, there it is. Right, so let me talk about limited partnerships with you. All right, in terms of its structure, what you're going to see is at least one general partner, at least one, and this is the person who will manage the business and will be personally liable for any of the partnership obligations or debts. In addition to the one general partner, there has to be at least one limited partner. This limited partner is an investor in the business. He or she does not participate in the management of the business. This limited partner, his or her maximum liability will be his or her investment in the partnership. Now, we can go ahead and limit the general partner's personal liability to his or her investment, But if we do that, what have we created? We have created what I just talked about on the previous slide, right? A limited liability limited partnership, all right? An LLLP. Right. Now, how is a limited partnership formed? Well, we're going to follow state statutes. This is a creation of state statutes, so it's a statutory entity. And once there's been an agreement signed, which, I would suggest you have a limited partnership agreement. As an attorney, I would suggest it. All right. You will file, if you're creating a limited partnership, a certificate of limited partnership with the Secretary of State's office. This form is also referred to as an LP1. All right. The citation, the link I have here on my slide, you can take that and go out to the Secretary of State's office to see that form. I forgot to load it up. All right. Right now I can see if it'll take us out, and this will be an experiment class. There it is. Took a little while. Sorry, had to put you through that, but at least it took us to the right place, the right form. All right, I'm trying to scroll down so you can see it. These are just some preliminary things you have to provide. All right, here's the actual form itself, and it is a single page. All right, you'll note that it just asks for some simple information. Name of the limited partnership, what's your address. You've learned about service of process in 12A, right? Service of process refers to who will receive any legal documents on behalf of the limited partnership. So someone has to be identified here. Typically, it could be the general partner. It could be the attorney that represents the limited partnership. It can be anybody, right? This LP1, the certificate requires identification of the general partners and how they can be contacted. And then that's pretty much it. All right. Needs a signature, and it needs to be filed with the state. All right. So good. Let me now return. I hope I can be successful in this. Sorry, class. Here we go. Oops, that's not helpful. That took me way back. Not good. All right. Here we are. This is where we left off. I'm not sure what has happened, but let me see. Well, I can just move this. Oh, I know what's happened. Oops, I saw that here. Sorry, class. Have to kind of put you through this. I'm kind of lost myself on the screen. Here we go. All right. Sorry for that detour. All right. Now, the limited partnership. It does operate a lot like the general partnership. Limited partners have most of the same rights as a general partner would, including a right to inspect records, demand information. They have some fiduciary duties they owe to the partnership. But they are given limited liability to the extent of their investment, as long as the limited partner does not actively participate in management. And this is just something I want to point out to you. It may not come up, in your experience, but occasionally I've read a case where what's happened to the limited partner is that he or she started to conduct business on behalf of the limited partnership. And so as a result, started to look more like a general partner with some decision making, with some participation in the management of the work. So there's been a case I have read where it was a real estate like management office, and the limited partner was asked to come in and kind of do some office work. All right, and the office work kind of grew beyond just open the mail and answer the phone, right, into more managerial, showing property, perhaps answering questions to people that might want to rent, and taking responsibility for the business. And so that actually turned into an active participation. And when the partnership was sued, the limited partnership was sued, the limited partner found him or herself subject to the lawsuit as well, and his or her personal assets being reached by the creditor. All right, so just a tip kind of to look for and to look out for. All right, and then the last thing we'll talk about is dissociation and dissolution. Many of the same reasons we've already covered with a general partnership apply here that you'll see come up. Dissolution may not occur, though, if it's only a limited partner who files for bankruptcy or who withdraws from the partnership. All right, so you got to look at which partner it is who is withdrawing or leaving the partnership. And if it's a limited partnership, there's less effect, okay, than if it's a general partner. If the general partner wants to leave the partnership can continue as long as there's another general partner. All right, so always pay attention to that. Which partner wants to leave the partnership, and what effect, if any, will their departure play on the business of the limited partnership? Now, the case in your book, I just inserted it here. It does involve a limited partnership, and it's regarding a dispute over the evaluation that was being used to calculate how much would be paid to the departing limited partners. And the major issue there was whether or not to use some appraisal values, and the courts found that it was a little too speculative to do that. So it ended up not being used as part of the calculations of the valuation. Oops, sorry, class. All right, now I just want to take a quick look here at a business scenario problem. This again is at the end of the chapter, and it involves a limited partnership. So in this limited partnership, we have three people: Dorinda, Louise, and Elizabeth. Dorinda is the general partner. Louise and Elizabeth are the limited partners. So consider each of these separate events and discuss whether the event constitutes a dissolution of the limited partnership. So in the first situation, Louise assigns his partnership interest to Ashley. All right, so Louise is a limited partner, so there's not going to be any effect. There's not going to be a cause to dissolve the partnership, right? All right, Elizabeth, she's also a limited partner, and she's petitioned into bankruptcy, petitioned into involuntary bankruptcy. And we'll learn about involuntary bankruptcy down at the end of the semester, all right? But basically, a creditor has brought Elizabeth into bankruptcy. Now, will that affect the limited partnership? And again, no, there's not going to be a dissolution because Elizabeth is only a limited partner. Now, how about if Dorinda, the general partner, passes away? She dies, right? This will be a major event in the life of the limited partnership, and it will cause a dissolution of the partnership. All right, that should bring us now to the end of our discussion of Chapter 37. And let me see if I can just close out of this and finish up the video. All right, I know my screen looks kind of messy right now, and I'm sorry about that. Right. And I just want you to know that we have finished with Chapter 37 in partnership. You have your assignments on MindTap, and we'll be moving also this week into chapter 38, which is the limited liability company, and that'll be yet another entity to expose you to. It's a short chapter. There's not a lot of content to learn with limited liability company. So just take it in stride, and we'll be moving very quickly into corporations. All right, I'll see you when we start discussing chapter 38. What did I do?